I like this comment that Mama K makes, because if you're in the dark to the future exposure, you're going to be honest in your record keeping because you're not spinning it in the record keeping. And if you watch the news today, there's a whole lot of spin. You go back 50 years to what it'll be today. So you go forward 50 years, look back at what we got in our records. How do you believe any of it?
Yeah.
Yes. I mean that's the impetus towards a postmodern epistemology too, right? You end up resulting, well, everyone's biased, everything's biased, and so how can you believe anything? And I like what William Lane Craig and J.P. Moreland, two of my favorite philosophers, say about that. They say there's a difference between psychological bias and rational bias. And we all need to acknowledge the psychological bias that we all have based on our background, what's happened to us. And we can acknowledge that. We can identify to a large degree the psychological bias that we have and try to make allowances for it and compensate for it by trying to be as objective as possible. What they're trying to get at is it doesn't necessarily mean that you can have no objectivity at all. It's just that you have to be careful. And this leads them to say that even though you may have psychological bias, doesn't mean that you are rationally biased. If you acknowledge your psychological bias, you can still reason with careful intent and arrive at rational conclusions using rules of inference and logic. So we shouldn't make that mistake that a lot of postmodernists make, that just because there's psychological bias in all of our thinking that we can't actually arrive at some objective truth, whether it's the Inquisitions or anything else for that matter.